Hey everyone, I'm the Canadian Lad, and I just watched Thor Love and Thunder trailer at 0.25x speed and found some incredible hidden details and Easter eggs. I'm gonna break it down shot by shot and try to explain everything that's been going on. But since Father's Day is right around the corner, today's video is dedicated to all the dads out there from Manscaped, the global leader in man's grooming tools and hygiene solutions. Forget the ties, coffee mugs, or tools and gadgets. Dad has enough of them. Manscaped is your one-stop solution for everything that men want and need. They just launched their Boxers 2.0 with 6 different color combinations, so dads can keep it classy or sassy. The specially constructed undies combine a comfortable stitchless inner pouch for support, making it roomy yet supportive for any body type. The Manscaped Lawnmower 4.0 and the new Boxers 2.0 are the perfect gift combination for any dad, brother, son, boyfriend, husband, or soon-to-be daddy. Help him take the hashtag dadbot to the next level with the Lawnmower 4.0, which is waterproof and a cordless trimmer. And of course, its ceramic blades have skin-safe technology to help protect from nasty nicks and cuts. And it comes with a built-in 4000K LED spotlight to brighten up even the darkest of places for a smooth shave. So please don't wait until the last minute to get a Father's Day gift. Get 20% off plus free international shipping with my promo code LAD at manscaped.com. Okay, so let's begin our breakdown.
Kids, get your popcorn now. Let me tell you the story of the space Viking, Thor Odinson. He was no ordinary man.
Alright, so the trailer opens by showing us the same shot we've seen in the previous teaser where Thor is meditating under a tree. But unlike the teaser, we now have these two characters walking up to Thor. Now, even though I'm not sure who they exactly are, but judging by their shadow, one of them is probably a male and another one a female character. So this could be Peter Quill and this one could be Nebula. But Nebula doesn't have long hair, or any hair really. So this could be Valkyrie, and in that case, this might as well be Jane Foster herself. I guess we won't know for sure until we see it, but one thing for sure, they did conceal it in the teaser. Now notice this planet isn't Earth, as we can clearly see two other planets in the sky, and this massive sun is of course the biggest giveaway. Not only that, we can also see a ringed planet. Now Taika Waititi has said that this movie is heavily inspired by Jason Aaron's graphic novel, The God of Thunder, and that's why I'm inclined to believe that this planet might be Indigarr. In the comics, the gods of this planet were killed by Gorr the God Butcher, and then one day one of the locals, precisely a young girl, prayed for rain, and her prayer was answered by Thor Odinson. And after arriving on this planet, Thor realized that someone is out there butchering all other gods. So in other words, this planet might play a crucial role in the plot. Now over here we see Korg telling some local kids of this planet about Thor Odinson. But notice Korg kept addressing Thor in the past tense. Well, this could obviously be Korg trying to over-dramatize things. But at the same time, this could be him telling a story to kids that already happened. Then we see Thor unveiling his new look. Notice Peter Quill and Nebula were there with him taking cover behind this rock. And I like how Thor threw this piece of cloth to uncover himself, but ended up covering a local behind him without knowing. Notice how Groot, Rocket, and Nebula were all following this piece of cloth as it drops on top of this local. That too on a guy who has a crown on his head. So he must be some sort of a leader of that group. And that's why a team member of this group jumps in the air, shocked by seeing what just happened. And in the next shot, Thor summons Stonebreaker. And there we can also see Drax. So it's pretty clear whoever Thor is getting angry at here, the whole Guardians team will be with him in this fight. Moving on.
He was a god. After saving planet Earth for the 500th time, Thor set off on a new journey. Well, he got in shape. He went from dad bod to god bod.
Now in this shot, we get a clear view of all the Guardians. We see Nebula, Drax, Mantis, Peter Quill, Groot, and Kraglin, who I think has taken on the mantle of Yondu. Now notice Thor pulls up his jacket as if it just got ready. So this scene is probably taking place before this fight. And this jacket probably belongs to Peter as they're all standing inside the Benatar, aka the Guardian's ship. So that's where Thor might have picked it up. We get a glimpse of New Asgard where now there's a golf course along with a lot of tourist boats. But the important detail here is this chariot, pulled by these two space goats called Tooth Gnasher and Tooth Grinder. They date as far as back as 1976 and have had over 50 appearances in Thor comics since then. These space goats possess unique powers, such as the ability to damage Mjolnir and pull Thor's chariot at super speed. And in the very next shot, where Thor summons his suit using Stonebreaker, notice Korg has these two goats on the leash. And I love how these two space goats start smiling as soon as Thor transforms himself into his original look. Now notice the surroundings here. This could be taking place in Sakaar as there's a lot of trash in the background, because we learned in Thor Ragnarok that Sakaar is an artificial trash trash planet created by the Grandmaster, which is surrounded by a lot of wormholes that deposit space waste. So when we saw Thor traveling from New Asgard to another planet in the teaser, that planet might just be Sakaar, which would also explain why the space coats are here as well. Thor used them to carry his chariot. But there's still one thing that makes me skeptical whether or not this is Sakaar. It's again the locals behind Thor who seem blue, because blue represents the population of Indigarr, not Sakaar. So let me know what you think about this. Then we see Thor working out, as we've seen previously in the teaser as well. But this time, Thor is literally using the Benatar, aka the Guardian ship, to train. I guess that's normal for someone who literally uses a massive chain for paddle rope exercises. Can I just take a second and appreciate how creative Taika has been with all these workout scenes? I mean, Taika knows Thor is a godly character, and for him to lose weight would take a far more effort than for any regular person. And Taika really let himself go in the sequences, and I love it. Now this next detail will tell you just how strong Thor is. Notice Thor isn't just trying to pull a spaceship that's been sitting idle. The Benatar is literally trying to move forward, but Thor is holding it still. In fact, he manages to pull it back quite a few yards as the chain is stretched to the fullest, and that shows extreme strength. I'm pretty sure Chris Hemsworth was pulling something really heavy while filming as well. I mean, look at the veins of this guy. Actually, I'll let Elizabeth Olsen admire his beauty better than me.
Well, Hemsworth is godly.
He's a godly man, yeah.
When I have worked with him very few times.
Yeah, it's hard not to
his arm.
be inappropriate.
Not like that to me is handsome.
Yeah.
But it is kind of wild to see in real life.
It going, is that real?
It's way bigger than my head.
On to the next shot.
And after all that, he reclaimed his title as the one and only Thor. Oh, spoke too soon.
Jane?
In this shot, Thor seems to be fighting against some mysterious creature. And before I tell you my theory about who I think these creatures are, take a look at the next scene. Here Thor is trying to hold Mjolnir. But if we focus on the background for a minute, notice there's a bait and tackle store. So a store that you're very likely to find near the coastline. So it's safe to assume whoever Thor is fighting against here is indeed taking place in New Asgard. Cut to the next shot where Jane Foster, aka Mighty Thor, snatches Mjolnir from Thor. Or so we're made to believe, because these two shots are not happening in the same sequence. Notice when Thor first encounters Jane, he's wearing a very fancy suit with a lot of gold and blue plating. And of course, don't forget this weird helmet. And Jane over here doesn't have any helmet. So Thor is wearing his old costume when Mjolnir approaches him. But in the next scene, when he encounters Jane, he's in his new gold and blue suit with a helmet. So my theory is Thor might be having a dream or a nightmare here about fighting some enemies, seeing a repaired Mjolnir, and that Jane is now an Asgardian god who can wield Thor's hammer. Except it won't just be a dream, and these events will actually play out later in the movie. Therefore, the difference is in his outfit. In simple words, this could be Thor having a dream after meditating so much, and this could be his dream turned into reality later in the film. This isn't the first time that Thor would have had a dream of the future. He did see the future in Age of Ultron through the Water of Sight. Now, as far as these weird creatures are concerned, I think this might be some minions of Gorr himself. Let me explain. Gorr possesses a unique sword in the comics. It goes by the name All Black the Necro Sword. This sword has so much history that I won't be able to finish it in this video, so I'll just give you the basic synopsis. All Black is the first symbiote. It was manifested from the shadow of the evil deity Null, and tempered using the divine power of a slain celestial. All Black was wielded by Null before anybody else. After Null, the sword chose Gorr as its wielder, bestowing him with immortality and a host of other abilities. Now, while Gorr used this sword to butcher gods around the cosmos, this sword drank the bloods of those gods that it killed. But after Gorr's humiliating defeat at the hands of Thor Odin's son, Gorr the God Butcher realized he could not continue the rampage all by himself. Gorr discovered he could use his sword to manifest semi-sentient creatures. He called them the Black Berserkers, which he considered to be a part of himself. And this might be those creatures that Thor is fighting here in this scene. Moving on.
The old ex-girlfriend.
What's it been like? 3, 4 years?
8 years, 7 months and 6 days, give or take.
Am I sensing feelings?
Well, you're right.
Now in this shot, we see Jane Foster riding a Pegasus in her full Thor costume, and then makes an epic superhero landing. Now as soon as she lands, her helmet dissolves into her suit starting from the earpieces. And notice these two scenes are taking place in the same location. Let me prove it to you. When Jane makes her superhero landing, behind her were these two statues of the Watcher and the Living Tribunal. We do get a clear view of this towards the end of the trailer, where we see statues of Lady Death, Aeon, Infinity, the Watcher, and the Living Tribunal. Now I'm not going to go into details who they are Because for that, you go to my friend Ryan on his channel Screen Crush. Now take a look at the scene where Jane is riding the Pegasus. Notice on the left side of the screen, we can see a little bit of Lady Death's statue here. Therefore, it's safe to assume that Jane will arrive on this ancient chamber using her Pegasus, which means this yellow glow behind her might just be a portal she came through. Then we see Thor talking to Korg about his ex-girlfriend, but notice the people around are sort of sobbing and sad. I wonder if this scene takes place after their first encounter in the film. So hear me out. Maybe New Asgard will be attacked by the Black Berserkers sent by Gorr. Thor will fight them off and meet Jane in the middle of that fight. And in that battle, Jane might get injured as she is still new to her powers. So in this building, Jane might be receiving some special treatment. And that's where Thor tells Korg that it's his ex-girlfriend. I know I might be completely off track here, but what's the harm in theorizing? Then we hear Jane Foster say some dialogues for the first time after Thor: The Dark World. She tells Thor it must be 3 or 4 years since they last met. But to her surprise, Thor remembers exactly how long it's been since their last meeting to even the specific date. He says it's been 8 years, 7 months, and 6 days. Now this actually explains, or at least gives us an idea on when Thor: Love and Thunder takes place in the MCU timeline. Now remember, Avengers Endgame took place in October 2023, and Thor broke up with Jane sometimes after the events of Age of Ultron, so May 2015. In that case, this movie takes place only a few months after Endgame, so the end of 2023 or the beginning of 2024. But the detail I want you to focus on is this.
What's it been like? 3, 4 years?
Jane thinking it's only been 3 years, whereas in reality 8 years have gone by, could be because she was blipped, whereas Thor didn't. And this dialogue from Jane also confirms that this movie takes place only a few months after Endgame, not a few years. Because if it's happening 2-3 years later, by that time Jane should have already figured out the exact years as well. Don't forget she's an astrophysicist, so her getting the date wrong indicates it hasn't been that long she returned from the blip. She's still not used to adding 5 extra years to whatever she counts. And this means Thor: Love and Thunder takes place before Spider-Man No Way Home and Doctor Strange 2. Now I caught another detail in this scene in the background. Notice behind Jane, this Asgardian couple is really happy to see each other, which backs up my theory that a fight will take place in New Asgard, where regular Asgardians will fight, and there we will meet Jane for the first time as well. Thor, Valkyrie, Jane, and Korg then travel to Olympus, the god realm of Zeus. Now in my teaser breakdown, I predicted that Thor will use his chariot powered by the Stonebreaker and travel to Olympus along with the Valkyrie, Jane, and Korg. And this trailer basically confirms that my entire theory was accurate. We see Thor and Jane sharing a moment in the chariot, Thor planting the Stonebreaker in order to power up the boat, and then eventually arriving on Olympus, breaking this giant glass dome. Now notice when these two space goats pull this boat by themselves, the energy coming off of the boat is white. Almost transparent I should say. But when Thor plants the Stonebreaker in the boat, the entire boat now glows in rainbow color, which is the color of the Bifrost Bridge, as the Stonebreaker has the power to summon the Bifrost. And notice just before they began their journey to Olympus, Asgardians had surrounded the place to bid farewell to Thor, indicating they knew Thor is going on a new adventure with his fellow teammates. On to the next clip.
The only ones who gods care about is themselves.
So this is my vow. All gods will die.
Alright, so we see Christian Bale as Gorr the God Butcher, and my goodness does he look good, eh? I know some of us might complain that he doesn't look exactly how he looked in the comics, but I genuinely like this change. Casting an actor like Christian Bale and then making his character look nothing like himself would be such a wasted opportunity. Instead of making Christian Bale look like Gorr, they decided to make Gorr look like Christian Bale. And I'm all up for it. I'm genuinely happy with the way he looks. And I can bet all my money on Bale that he's gonna give us a performance of a lifetime. I'm so happy Marvel has given us some of the best villains in Phase 4 already. Now all that's left to be seen is if the writers did justice to his character, and I have my fingers crossed. Now the first time we hear Gorr speak in the trailer, he talks about how the gods only think of themselves. And there we see a massive rock moving towards a dark planet. Seems like a planet that Gorr has butchered already, or somewhere that he lives himself. But notice upon this rock is this giant cage, and inside it appears to be a figure wearing a red cape. So this could be Thor flying towards Gorr for the climactic battle. And it's also possible that there are other characters on top of this floating rock, but Marvel removed them for the trailer. We then see Gorr picking up his Necro sword in a true villainous fashion. But what makes me worried is the place where he might be. This looks like somewhere in Indigarr or planet Earth, and judging by Gorr's reputation, if he steps on a planet, that's never a good sign. Now in the next shot, we see Gorr in his complete hooded costume, and this looks absolutely gorgeous. The way Christian moves these creatures as if he's moving a curtain and coming out of it, I mean look at his eyes here, the makeup, the lighting are just perfect. Now these moving creatures surrounding Gorr might be similar creatures like the Black Berserkers. Gorr can create these creatures using his Necro sword, and the way he's surrounded by them might indicate how the Necro sword has completely taken over him. Remember, each god Gorr kills, he absorbs their powers, and his sword drinks their blood. So by killing other evil gods, he's getting more evil. In the comics, even his wife starts getting scared of him and tells him that he has become the very thing he despised, a god. And for that, he even killed his wife. Well, a version of his wife at least. We can also see the scars and wounds on Gorr's arms and shoulders. He might be immortal because of his sword, but he surely can get hurt. Then we see Gorr without his costume and in broad daylight, which only happened once in the entire trailer. All scenes involving Gorr except this one is in black and white contrast, which makes me believe this might be a younger version of Gorr, who just had enough and has now decided that all gods will die. This might be a scene explaining his origin story and how he turned so evil, which would explain why he's not wearing his regular costume, why this version of Gorr doesn't have any scars, and the fact that his teeth look perfectly fine here too. This is just Gorr in the initial stages, but this one has reached his peak and is now on a rampage. Moving on.
I just want to say that was very, very impressive what you did back there.
He's just my first bad guy.
You never forget your first.
Okay, so we see Thor talking to Jane Foster and telling her how impressed he is with her fighting skills. Thor is probably talking about this fight over here that will take place in Olympus right in front of Zeus. And notice just behind Jane, we can see Thor with his back tattoo, and Valkyrie can be seen here as well. Now, this detail may seem like a small one, but trust me, it gives a whole lot more if you connect all the pieces, because now I can figure out how the whole thing might play out in the movie. And this is what I think. Thor, Valkyrie, Korg, and Jane will arrive here in Olympus. Zeus will strip Thor of his clothes, Jane will ask Valkyrie should they go and help him, and a massive fight will take place where Zeus might end up dying. And on their way out, Thor will tell Jane how impressed he is with her fighting skills. Now, of course, I could be wrong here, so please take all my theories with a grain of salt. Now, going back to the scene where Jane Foster fights alongside Thor, notice what happens when she throws her hammer. Because the hammer was broken into pieces and now held together probably through magic, we can now see Mjolnir reshatters, and each chunk takes out an individual attacker, before coming together once it returns to Jane's hands. And notice that any projectile that misses the target actually goes upwards and comes back, rather than hitting an innocent target. And I think it's an amazing detail from the VFX team, because the people in the background are probably just the general public of Olympus, who don't deserve to get hit. And that's why pieces of Mjolnir that miss the target don't ricochet off of anything else. We then see Gorr literally killing a whole planet using his all-black, the Nacro sword. I like how he's holding the sword in the middle instead of the handle. He doesn't care whether it cuts his hand. He's just way too powerful to even feel that sort of thing. And notice, even though the planet he just butchered was already black and white, but after the sword makes an impact, the planet gets even darker. Or maybe this is actually Marvel throwing us off, as this could be either of the Thors destroying a planet for some reason. I mean, what are the chances that Thor and Gorr both share the same blue lightning? So chances are these are two different scenes mashed together for the trailer. On to the next clip.
You are not like the other gods of kill.
Because I have something worth fighting for.
Okay, so we now see Thor blasting Stonebreaker in this black and white monochrome. Notice how each and every debris in the background and this entire planet that Thor is standing on are all black and white. Even Stonebreaker partially appeared to be black and white until it surged with energy. And the parts of Thor we see in color is because of light coming off of Stonebreaker, meaning this place practically has no light. Therefore, it doesn't show any color unless the light reflects off of it. That's why Stonebreaker appeared black and white until it glowed with energy. Even in the case of Gorr, it remains the same. Only his orange eyes emit color. It's even more visible when we see Valkyrie fighting Gorr in the same location using Zeus's lightning bolt. Notice Valkyrie's body is black and white except this lightning bolt, which emits light on Valkyrie's arms and face, and that's why those appear in color. In fact, we can see bits of Gorr in color as well because of the light coming from this bolt. In other words, Gorr's power makes the whole environment black and white with his presence. We then see Thor fighting Zeus's guards wearing a blue dress, a shot of Gorr which looks absolutely terrifying, and I think this could be Gorr towards the end of the film. Here he looks the most devastated and scary. His Nacro sword probably took him under control entirely. The veins on his forehead, the expression on his face don't indicate pleasure. In fact, if anything, it seems like Gorr is in pain here. We then get a shot of Drax and Nebula shooting from their guns, and judging by the background, this looks to be in Indigarr, where Thor was meditating at the beginning of the trailer. We then see Jane and Thor almost holding hands, so it's not only Thor who still has feelings for Jane, it's a mutual feeling, just like it was a
Mutual dumping.
But notice this frame is still in black and white, meaning not only Thor and Valkyrie, but Jane will also be be here to fight Gorr. And if you take a closer look, you may as well notice Gorr standing there in front of them. So two gods side by side and a soldier just to defeat one being. That already shows just how powerful Gorr is. We then get these two epic shots where Gorr points to Thor and Thor calls onto Gorr to bring it on. And as I said, without lights you can't see color on this planet, or any planet really. Anyway, take a look at Thor here. He's fully in black and white as no light is coming off of Stormbreaker. And notice in this frame, Gorr seems to have some massive scars on his forehead, whereas this younger version, who didn't go on a killing spree yet, had no visible scars on his head at all. Just two marks from his head down onto his face. But this one seems wounded, dangerous, and just batshit crazy. But one thing that bugs me though is that the wind is blowing in two different directions in this scene. The debris in the background are going from left to right, but Gorr's robe is blowing in the opposite direction. But I guess that's okay because...
Why not, you stupid bastard?
On to the next clip.
Let's see who you are. I take off your disguise. And flick! Oh, you flick too hard, damn it!
Should we help him? And eventually, grape.
Okay, so Zeus, played by Russell Crowe, flicks a bit too hard, but we can complain, can we? It's never a Thor movie unless we see Chris Hemsworth shirtless. I mean, I'm a straight guy and I'm still blown away by his physique. I mean, take a look at the reaction of everyone else. This guy puts his hand in his heart. These two ladies drop their jaws in awe. And these two guards almost fainted as well, but somehow kept their cool and stood their ground. And I like how this lady starts going senseless, but as she does that, she smiles just at the end. Now let's zoom in on Thor's bare back, shall we? Thor seems to have tattooed the helmet of Loki on his back, and it even says RIP Loki with a heart symbol underneath. This shows what Loki means to Thor. To him, Loki has completely redeemed himself, and I don't think there could be a better way of giving a tribute to Loki than this. And oh, see these glowing chains holding Thor captive? Thor will later use these chains to fight Zeus's guards. And can I just point out one CGI detail here? This blue dress over Thor is completely CGI in this shot, and yet when it flies away from Thor, the VFX department made sure to add the shadow of this dress. And that's it. This would be my breakdown of Thor Love and Thunder trailer at 0.25 speed. I hope I was able to give you lads some new details that you didn't catch in your first viewing. If I did, then please give me a thumbs up, grab the subscribe button, and turn notifications on. Follow me on Instagram and Twitter to get updates before I post my videos. Till then, I'm Kevin Hart, and I'll see you lads in the next one.
You flick too hard, damn it!
Why not, you stupid bastard?